Good afternoon to you all. Today we'll be demoing HIVE and its best practices for HIVE and its setup. My name is Maurice Altaf. I'm an account manager with SolidCAD, and I look after the CTC products under Revit. Today we'll have Drew talk a little bit about HIVE and its setup. He is an AEC application specialist. SolidCAD offers an array of products and services. We offer training as well as BIM consulting, some simulation analysis, and then some events that we host on the site as well. And as well as technical support free of cost for all of our clients. We have training facilities all across Canada, 15 offices as well, 12 to be specific. And Solid Assist technical support is what we provide to our clients free of cost, as I mentioned before. Some of our associations and sponsorships, Can BIM Ottawa is going on, as some of you might know, and some of the other Toronto BIM community. We've got associations with different companies as well. We resell a lot of products, a lot of good products out there, and CTC happens to be one of them. Today we'll have a look into CTC and what it offers. CTC actually used to be a reseller just like SolidCAD. There came a time when a lot of their clients started asking questions as to how to do things better within Revit. And so they actually started developing tools for both Revit end users and for the BIM management team. Some of the tools are in front of you guys. Some of these tools are for Revit and Civil 3D. Today we'll have a look at HIVE and how HIVE can actually enhance your productivity within Revit. Some of the challenges without HIVE is that there's many files out there, and there's window file structures that not a lot of people are sure of. They're always wasting time looking for that right family or that right content. File name isn't obviously always a right way to identify the right family, and you're unable to access some of the files and some of the content outside the family. And a lot of times our desktops end up looking like this. Which, I mean, to some might be funny, but to some not the greatest thing. The solution is HIVE. HIVE actually provides selective search for all of the content, independent of the folder structure. It searches through the metadata of the files, and including its custom tags that you as the BIM management team create. HIVE is actually hosted both on your local server and cloud. The reason why I've highlighted cloud is because of the recent cloud big deal nowadays, because everyone nowadays everyone is working from home, and it's direct and instant Revit consumption. Meaning, as soon as you wall, and it works well with projects that are hosted in BIM 360. Now, that was just an overview of HIVE. I'm gonna transfer this and change the presenter to Drew, and he'll take a deeper dive into HIVE.
Thank you, Maurice. Quick little sound check. If you can just confirm you can hear me.
Yes, it's all good.
Great. Okay, so yeah, my name is Drew Jarvis, an application specialist with SolidCAD. And today I've got an agenda for you related to Hive. So I'm going to show you a bit of what is Hive, how we can use it to find content and load it into Revit. So we're specifically looking at how Hive relates to Revit. How we can add additional content to Hive, and how we can control our groups and users within the Hive environment. So I've got a few slides to show you first of all, and then I'm going to open up the live software and we'll see the actual product. So first of all, Hive is a tool that centralizes your Revit data as well as other data like Word files, PDFs, and more. It enables you to share the same data to all of your team members, either via local storage or via the cloud, or a combination. So it can be used offline or it can be used on the cloud. So you can search for content by simple things like the file name, but also more complex things like the data stored inside of the content. So in fact, down to every parameter within a family. It has a simple to learn interface, allowing you to navigate to your company's standard content. Now, most companies are going in one of three directions with content storage in Revit. Either they will use their template and put everything in the template, or they will be putting families into what they might term a warehouse file, or they could just be leaving content in a Windows folder structure. So all of these methods, I would say, have a downside. A bloated template would lead to poor performance. The warehouse file can be difficult to load from sometimes because you're having to open up your project file plus the warehouse file, find the object, copy and paste it or whatever. And traditional Windows folder structure can definitely be difficult to search or navigate. So Hive is going to address that by centralizing the content, making it easy to search, easy to load, wherever those files are actually located. So this is the HIVE interface. You'll notice on the left-hand side there's a navigation bar with shortcuts to the features that you'll be using. So you can see searching there, libraries, adding content, users and groups. And so you just click on one of those items on the left-hand side in order to get access to that page. So for example, if I take a look at the search page, this is one of the two main ways that you can find content within Hive. So the search window enables you to search the file name or tags on the content or the file type to find the content you need. So search results can be displayed in either a grid or a list style. To see more results on the screen, you would use the grid, and to get more information about the content, you would use the list. Now, the second way that we can look for content is the Discover panel. So the Discover panel allows you to start filtering based on the parameter values of the actual content. So on the right-hand side there, you can see all these different filter attributes. A simple one would be the category of the object. So we'll be able to say, okay, we're looking for doors whose width equals this, whose height equals this other value, maybe there's a certain material, and it's going to filter down from your available content down to the objects that match those filtering attributes. Now, the libraries are a way of you storing your content, and so they're useful for grouping content to make searching faster. They also define which content users are going to be able to see. So you may have specific client projects that have certain content inside of it that you only need to give to certain groups of people within your company. And so the library is a way of doing that. Once you have a library, then adding content to it is fairly straightforward. You would be navigating to where the content is stored locally, selecting it, and then using the process button there to actually put that information into Hive, which will give it a location on the cloud as well. So it will automatically process it and put it up there. It'll take care of the things like the tags and things like that so that the searching becomes easy. Now, the security is controlled by defining users and groups, and that's actually done via a web portal. So the user accounts, they're linked to the email address of your staff, and to access adding users, creating groups, that type of thing, You do click the users and groups button inside of Hive, but what it does is it opens up a web portal for you and gets you to log in there. So we're going to take a look at all of those in a bit more hands-on detail. Just before I do open up the software, there are a couple of places available for you within GoToWebinar. One of them is the questions. So feel free to ask questions as we go. So it's going to be taking a look at those questions and answering them as we go along. And then at the end, I'm going to circle back and address all of those Q&As. And there's also a chat window there as well. So I would say best to use the question portal. But certainly if you're having any problems and you need to talk to us, then the chat window is there as well. So we are keeping an eye on both of those. Okay, so here I have my Revit. So I'm in Revit 2020.2 right now. This is just the architectural metric template that I've opened up. So there's nothing in here. A couple of elevation views. Within Revit, I have my CTC tools. So you can see I got my BIM batch suite, BIM manager, BIM project suite. And then on the far side over here, I've got my Hive tool. So this is going to load up the Hive interface within Revit, which is the best way to run it when we're loading content into our Revit. So as I click on this, it's going to open up my Hive dialog box, which is just going to be able to float around there. If I want to make it a bit smaller, you can see I can collapse it, and so I can still search for content here. And I can make it bigger there as well. So what I'm going to do is take a look at a few of these different tabs here and explain them. So the first one here just shows me that I'm currently logged in as myself. I'm an admin, and I can change my password here. I've got some control over the size of the preview images and things like that. So not too much that we need to deal with here right now, but there are some settings that are going to affect how the content is presented to you. As I mentioned in the slides, there's two main ways of searching for content. So if I was to come into here right now in my search window, I'll make this a bit larger. There's no point me hiding half the screen, obviously. We can see I've got my search window, and over here it's showing me a grid view. So if we take a look at one of these grid views, we can see a preview image of the object, the name of the family or the name of the type, in the case of a system family, then what category it is, what version it's stored in. Now you're only going to see older than 2020 versions here. So if I had 2021 content, it wouldn't show up because I wouldn't be able to load that into Revit 2020. So depending on which version of Revit you open, you might see different content because it's not going to show you stuff that's newer. We then have how many times this has been loaded, so you can kind of keep an eye on what is popular content. And there's also a rating system here. So users can provide you with a rating. They can also provide you with feedback. So there's a request tool over here, which would enable people to tell you if some of the families aren't quite right, they're causing them trouble, that type of thing. Yeah. Now, also at the top here, we have the ability to search. So if I was just looking for a door, I'm going to type in panel here, first of all, and press enter. Okay. What we'll find is that this acts kind of like a Google search. So panel didn't have to be the first word, for example. So I'll get rid of that little wildcard there. It just happens to exist inside of here. In fact, if I put single after it as well, there you go. Now it's finding all of the families that have panel and single. So it's providing me more content when I have more words there. So it's just looking through the file names, it's looking through the tags on the objects, it's looking through certain sets of metadata inside of there to bring them up. Now the reason I searched for panel specifically was to show you another little thing in my grid here, which is when they have type catalog. So a lot of the doors and windows now, they have the little TXT files with them for the type catalog. And so that is what the T indicates there. So I'm going to step out of Hive for a moment. Oops. And show you what we would have if we were just loading the content with AutoCAD. So I've got myself a wall, I start a door, which wasn't meant to be there. There Okay, good. And so if I didn't have any doors, if I go to load a door now, I'm going to go to my insert tab. I'm going to load family, and I'm going to go and find myself some doors. Luckily, it took me to my library. That may not have been the case. Maybe my library is on a server somewhere. I need to go and path to that one. Hopefully, I've got a shortcut to it over here. Now I'm going to go for doors. I've got a bunch of doors here. I've got some subfolders inside of here. I don't really have any way to find exactly what I'm looking for, but I'm going to go maybe residential and pick on one of these interior doors and open it up. And this one comes with a bunch of types from a type catalog. So I could pick different ones here and load them in. But it took me knowledge of where that was stored in order for me to find it. If I can find a door that isn't type-based, and let's see if that's, well, that's not really one, is it? Let's go with that one. Okay, so they're all going to be type-based now. You could find that you end up loading a family. You only really needed one size of it, but it loads in all of the different types that come with that content. So where Hive is going to be a bit better for us, and I'm just going to clean this up a little bit as I've loaded in some stuff. Quick purge, so we'll go get rid of those doors here. Okay, so in Hive, if I take a look at these, you can see at the moment I've got one that's a type catalog. If I was to right click on this one and select load from my interface, it's going to come up and show us, very similar to Revit, a list of the types available. And so you can pick on different ones that you want and load them into the project. Okay. So now you see those two there. Where it differs and is an improvement upon Revit is when you don't have a type catalog. So these ones here, they don't have a little T next to them. So if I go to load this one, this is just a regular family, but it's still going to look inside of it. It's going to find that this category door family has a bunch of types, and it's given us the option to just pick some of those types. We can pick some and select them and load them, or we can load all of them. But this is a good feature because we can start to not load in the things we weren't really too interested in. We don't want to have this massive long list of types loaded all the time. So I'll just pick a couple of those. And typically you wouldn't run it full screen. This is just for the presentation. I'll probably try not full screen the whole time. And yeah, now over here you can see it's just loaded in the two types that we were interested in. There are a couple of different views that we can have. So grid view is showing us some information. The list view is giving us a different set of information there. And we have a couple of panes that we can open up as well. So we have a filter, which is going to help us to filter the content that we're being provided in our search results. And we also have a content. So if I pick on an object here, it's going to start showing me more information about that object there. And so for the sake of this presentation, when we want to see all this data here, I'm just going to move a few things around. But we can see who uploaded it, where it's located locally, all the different types that are available inside of there, the different parameters that are on these objects. As I pick them, we can, maybe if I go to one that has dimensional data there, the width 350, so this one's 450. So it's showing us that information inside of that family, which is a very powerful interface in order to see information inside of a family that you wouldn't normally see until you've loaded it into your project. So over on the side here, I have access to filters. So at the moment, I'm just seeing content from my demo. If I wanted to pick out maybe some out-of-the-box content as well, I could pick up the US metric one, hit apply, and we will get a slightly different list of objects available. There we go. So that panel now is giving me a baluster panel, a curtain panel tag, all these different types of things over here. You can see how quickly it searched through my whole library and found this content for me. I apologize if that scrolling doesn't come across too well on a webinar. Down here, we also have tags. So inside of my libraries, these are the different tags that I have available. So if I was particularly looking for something, then I can use my tags to filter there as well. So tags are placed onto the content when they're loaded in. I've also got it checked off here that it's only loading Revit content. So there could be PDFs and Word documents and things like that. Maybe if I'm looking for keyboard shortcuts, Let's see what I get if I just type that. And what we'll do is we'll just look on all of them. Okay, so we have some content here. Maybe I'll go to a grid view. We can see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 objects. Let's turn off the Revit only. And there we go. Now we're starting to see the things that aren't Revit based. So it doesn't have to be families that it's finding here. If I was to double click on any of these, what it's going to do is just go and open up the software that's associated with that file. And so here my Revit keyboard shortcuts PDF file. Once that one opens up for me, there we go. So it's just using whatever Windows is associated with a PDF file. So lots of different content can be searched for inside of here. So moving down into the other method of searching here, what I'm going to do is show you the Discover tab. So as I come in and again go to a particular library here, so the demo content. Okay. Over on the side here, we have all of our different attributes that we can start searching with. So I haven't selected anything yet, and so nothing is coming up yet. But let's say that we're looking for doors again. So Revit category, I'll click on doors. It adds that search filter over to here, and that shows me all the doors that are in this particular library. If I look at any of these other information here, this is all parameters that are on doors. So it's filtered not only the contents provided here, but it's also filtered this list here to show just that. So as I come down and look for width, maybe I'm looking for a door of a certain width here. So I'm going to go with 900, and my list will then be cut down based on that. So you can see you can just start to pick things inside of the families and use that to filter the content. And then when you're happy with what you found, again, just right click and load. So I tend to see that if you know kind of the name of it, that type of thing, search is your go-to. That might typically be used more often. But if you're not really quite sure which family you need, then the Discover is going to be a very powerful interface. So, so don't forget to use both of these. Now, as I take a look down the interface here into my libraries, for example, I can see a list of all the different libraries that I have. If I was to pick my demo content and look at the details, I can then see all the content that's inside of there. If I was to go to edit, I'd be able to see which users and groups have been assigned to it. So users and groups here, you can see there is a demo group that's been added to it. That demo group will have some users inside of it, and that then means that those users will be able to view that demo content library. Now, if we wanted to add additional content, I can go here to my add content. At the top on libraries, again, we can pick the different libraries we want to load into. So I'm going to go with this demo content. I can pick multiple, so a file can exist in more than one library. And now I'm going to either pick files or folders. So if I pick folders, it's going to search for everything inside of there. If I pick files, then I have to pick specific files and select them. So I'm going to go with files for this one. And I think I'm just going to go to my standard content, which, yeah, shortcut would have been a good idea for that one. Let's go program data. Sure, we've all memorized where libraries are inside of the software. Oh, not there. Revit 2020 libraries. Okay, so we've got some US metric, and we'll go down to Windows, and I could just pick a couple of these different windows inside of here and open. And that's going to add them down here. If I pick folders, then I would get a lot more. And one of the useful things is the ability to filter out the different file types. So if you weren't looking to load in, maybe there's some additional files in there that you weren't really interested in, you can deselect them here and just get the families. Once you're happy and ready to go with those, then you hit the process button down here. And that's going to hopefully not take more than few seconds. Maybe. Okay, so it's decided not to process. By the look of it, you know, live demonstrations are always fun. Maybe it's done it, I don't know. So I'm going to go back to my library and just have a look for Windows here. Let's go to search, and we'll get rid of that content. So we've got our awning. Okay, so yeah, let's turn off a few of these and quickly go back to our demo content. Okay, so for whatever reason, it's given me some pain in the live demonstration there. I think we're good. Normally that just rolls on, processes it in a few seconds, and they're ready to go. Okay. So what we'll take a look at next then is just some of the users and groups. So if I was to click on my users and groups here, it's not going to be taking me in this interface anymore. It's actually going to take me out to a web portal. I'm going to click on users and groups here, and I'll log in to this web portal. And this is where we process our users. It's where we can add users. So if I go to my user list, you can see here that I've got some of my colleagues already listed inside of here. I have the ability to add users here. So I can go and add Stefan. And see if I can put an email address in there. So as I mentioned, they are linked to the email address as the primary way that it's adding users. You'll notice that the user can be defined either as a standard user or a company admin. So straight away, if you make them a company admin, they're going to be able to do everything. They're going to be able to make new libraries, and they're going to be able to add content and things like this. So if that's not what their role is, then a standard user would be the way to go with that. We can also disable users when they're not active users. Yeah, so at the moment, I'm just going to save that user. That user will be notified. It's been a nice surprise for Stefan. He doesn't know he's been added, so he's going to get an email there. If I take a look at my groups, this is the way that we can manage users' access to libraries. So we don't want to necessarily, when we make a new library, have to go in and add each individual user. So you can see here for my BIM manager group, I've got 10 users in there. The user group has 5 users, the demo group has 1 user. So if I take a look at this one, the demo one, you can see just myself in there right now. So if I was looking to add additional people to there, then I could come back to my users, to my groups, and let's have a look here. If I edit my group, I can find my colleagues. So Camila, we can put in there, or we can take anyone else and put them across to become members of that group. Save the changes. And now we have additional members inside of there. So the users and the groups is all taken care of within this web portal here. It's not within the actual HIVE interface. If I go back to my libraries now, though, now that we kind of know what a demo, now that we kind of know what a group and a user is, if I go to my demo content and edit it, we can see here I've got my demo group. And so because I have myself and Camila now in that group, that means that the 2 of us will have access to this content. That's assuming that we're not just company admins, whereby you get access to everything anyway, but that's kind of how the groups work. So you can either add individual users to a library, or you can assign them by groups, and I definitely recommend that groups method. Now, other things we have in the interface, we can see here the active project. So as I click onto there, it's actually going to give me kind of like we would get down here, a list of all of the content. And now it's decided to process that content. Here we go. So those windows I was adding before, there they go. Never seen that. It's good. Okay, so we have this. Now in the active project, I'm getting a list of all of my different families here. So 2 ways they can be shown on the screen here. We can do them by name, so they're just in alphanumeric order, or we can go by category. So now it's going to be alphanumeric of the category that they're in. So now all of the cable trays are going to be in together here and ready to add, ready to see and make use of. So yeah, let me go back to the search for now. So some other things that we have. You can see here we can save searches. So if you have a particular set of things that you're looking for and you want to be able to get back to them again, then you can save your searches here. You can also then filter them to look for them if the list gets very long here. We have access to our library, so we can just click onto a library and it will take us into all of the content inside of that library. Back to home. And we also have then our tags, so we can use the tags that we assign to objects in order to search for them as well. So if I go back to my add content, here we had tags, and so if I'm adding in some additional content here, I'm going to go maybe up to something a little bit different. So let's go with mechanical, and we'll find an air handler. There we go. So we've got an air handling unit there. As I'm adding this content, you can see I have access to tags. And so if I click onto that area, here's a list of all the tags that currently exist. If I wanted to add another one in that doesn't yet exist, like coil, for example, then I can type down here coil, create that tag, and you see now it's got a tag for its version, it's got a tag for the fact that it's a coil, maybe there's a mechanical. So anything that's going to help you search for this content, you can pick here to tag. Okay. And once that's ready to go, let's see if process works now. There we go. Easy as that. Okay, so that's being added into the project now. So if I go back to my search and I click on coil, do a quick refresh here, perhaps give it time to catch up with that one. Probably not seeing that coil just yet. I just type coil in here and we'll go into the demo. That will be the reason why it wasn't showing. There we go, there's that AHU coil. And as I go back to home, yeah, it's apparently taking a little while for the tags to synchronize. Okay. So the process of adding the content, it can be done at a local level. It's going to remember where that content came from, but what it is actually doing is putting it up onto the cloud. Now, there are settings so you can control whether that behavior always happens. So you can turn it off so it's not cloud-based. But there is definitely a benefit to having it cloud-based because that's going to enable you to access the content from anywhere. And in these days where we have lots of users who are working from home, having the availability of cloud content is going to be very useful. So I'm actually going to take a look at the questions area and see if we have any interesting questions and indeed answers. So I see one question there. There's no chat, so that's good. So no questions. So how do I add content to a library when the project sits on BIM 360? So if the project is on BIM 360, it still exists as a local file. So the process is the same. You're going to open up your project file with Revit and open up the Hive, and you'll have access to content, whether that file is on BIM 360 or not. And as far as adding content to the library, the content, yeah, it either exists as a Revit RFA file on a local location, or it's part of your Revit file, but that is also has its local copy as well. So you shouldn't have any challenges with that. So Maurice, did you see any other questions?
No, I haven't seen any other questions yet. This was a good question. I wonder if you know, they meant if this is content coming from their local server or the project itself.
Right. So
yeah,
and it shouldn't. It'll work with both, I guess.
Okay.
Maybe
okay.
I'm not understanding. Maybe I don't know. We can take that one offline if you do have a follow-up there. as well?
Yeah, well, there is a follow-up to that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when the project is open from BIM 360, I cannot add content from the project to Hive library.
Oh, right. Okay. So, so that would be from the active project, or anyway. Okay, so we can look into that offline for you and figure out how to get around that. It might just be a case of exporting the families out to a local save and then uploading them that way. If it's not going to work directly from a BIM 360 based file. That being said, there is due to be some updates to Hive coming up fairly soon. Oh, I see another question. Yes, that's been the workaround. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I'm just telling you something you already know there. So yeah. Okay, so I've managed to fly through this without taking up too much of your time there. Do you have anything else you wanted to talk about, Movies?
No, you've covered a good bunch of information. Thank you for your time, Drew. And we'll wait maybe another minute or two to see if anyone else has any questions. Dylan will for sure reach out to you outside of this demo, and we'll continue this conversation about Hive and BIM 360.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, this is the contact details here. So we do have somebody, as we've said, that's specifically in charge of the accounts for AEC productivity tools, which is a great resource for us to have. And here's his email address if you want to get in contact. So thank you very much for coming to the webinar today. I hope it was